Here we're doing stand-up shows October 20th through the 23rd in Florida and Buffalo. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for tickets. So Facebook, they did it again. They did it again. So this is the last time we covered the Democratic Iowa primary and the debacle and how the DNC was meddling with the results. Remember that? They couldn't figure out how to count votes, and then Buttigieg declares victory, even though... And so I did the story, and it said DNC switches votes from Bernie to Buttigieg, which they did. Independent fact checkers at Lead Stories say this post has false information. So that's what you would see if you were going to share it. This has false information. And the guy who fact-checked it was this guy. You can't see it. Oh, I should have made this bigger. So this guy's name is Ryan Cooper, and he's a staff writer and fact-checker for Lead Stories. He is the former director of programming at CNN International. Do you need to know anything else? CNN has lied to you about every war. They're the ones who had the backpack sniffing it to make sure it was a chemical attack in Syria. That's under that guy's tutelage. He's fact-checking me, Ryan Cooper. A paid propagandist is fact-checking me. So, of course, he got it 100% wrong. And here was the story. Here's their independent fact-checker Lead Story. It says, fake news, DNC not caught flipping votes from Bernie to Buttigieg. Because my headline said, the headline of the video, my video, claimed DNC caught flipping votes from Bernie to Buttigieg. And this is what their fact check was. However, Dore did not offer specific evidence that the DNC deliberately flipped votes or delegates from Sanders to Buttigieg. Here's direct evidence from Politico. Iowa autopsy report, DNC meddling led to caucus debacle. According to the audit, the reported irregularities in the results came from the DNC's end rather than the data provided. The DNC was meddling and they gave the wrong account totals. I was 100% right, and Ryan Cooper at Lead Stories, which is a made-up bullshit thing that you know is funded by the establishment, it got it wrong, 100% wrong. Of course he got it wrong. He works at CNN. Of course he got it wrong. You saw Joe Rogan just dismantle CNN. And so here's the latest. So we did this video, studies, vaccines being administered incorrectly. They are. And we quoted this guy. Why am I always blanking on
Campbell?
his? Yes.
John Campbell.
John Campbell. Now, I refer to him as Dr. John Campbell. He has a PhD, but he is a guy who teaches nurses, right? So he's a staff nurse who teaches other nurses how to be nurses. And he's taught many nurses how to give injections. And he said, quoted a study. So if you tried to share this, it said partly false information checked by independent. Again, independent. Not so independent. So here we go. Study vaccines being administered incorrectly. And so here's, if you clicked on the link of the fact check, this is what came up. Incorrect vaccine administration is a potential cause of post-vaccine adverse effects, but more research is still needed to confirm or reject this hypothesis. What? So they're not, first of all, they're not saying it one way or the other. They're not saying it. That's them. Incorrect vaccine administration. Well, they are being incorrectly administered. And you're going to watch this fact check actually agrees with me. So I don't know why they considered it misleading or partly false, because as I'm going to show you, the people who fact-checked this actually agreed with us, and I think Facebook just lied. I don't know why they came up with this, but I'm going to show you. So here's how I found out about this. John Campbell did a video about it. Watch this.
Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, and this one really is an interesting story, but it's completely true. Now, it started here. So someone called Jimmy Dore, you'll probably know him if you live in the States, but he made a video about one of my videos, which is all very interesting. So here we have Jimmy Dore.
And in this video, What he showed us was that when you give a vaccine, you're supposed to do a thing called aspirate, which means when you stick the needle in, you're then supposed to draw it back a little. And if you see blood, you're supposed to throw that vaccine out. You're supposed to throw that syringe out because that means you hit a blood vessel, and if you inject it into a blood vessel, that's bad. That causes all kinds of bad side effects, meaning heart inflammation, which is what this study showed. So that's what we showed. We showed that he was saying they're doing it wrong all over the United States and the UK. They're doing it incorrectly. So when everybody's getting a vaccine, they're not aspirating, which they should be, because that's even what the manufacturer of the vaccines recommends. And they're not. So that was our video, that they're not doing it. So the theory is that they're hitting veins sometimes when they give you the jab. And so a paper so these smarty pants people did a study on mice, and they injected it into the mice's veins to see what happened. Turns out they get heart inflammation. And they know if you don't aspirate, you could hit a vein. And that was our report. 100% accurate and correct. In fact, this fact check is going to confirm it. Here we go.
On me about giving a correct administration technique for intramuscular vaccine. But it became interesting because Jimmy Dore posted this onto his Facebook, and Jimmy Dore's Facebook was fact-checked, as often happens with Facebook articles. And if you look at the Facebook article that was fact-checked, it takes you through to this link here. Now, again, I've posted the full links there, or you can click through from the site. So, study vaccines being administered incorrectly has been adjudicated as misleading. So that was the kind of headline. Now, this, remember, is talking about Jimmy Dore's video, about my video. But when you actually look at this, it's actually a very nice piece of work. So I was quite delighted to get this extensive peer review, which is great because, of course, we're always open to peer review as long as it's objective. And this was. So really quite an interesting turn of events, and some new facts have come up with it as well, it has to be said.
Okay, so he's thrilled he's going to be peer-reviewed by this fact-check doctor guy. He's thrilled about it. Why? Because it confirms what he said is true and what I said he said is true. That's why he's thrilled. But Facebook still says it's misleading, which is incorrect. So I'm going to show you what they said. In a video, comedian Jimmy Dore cited another video made by staff nurse John Campbell, who discussed a mouse study published in the journal Clinic Infectious Diseases, in which researchers detected heart inflammation in mice that received an mRNA COVID-19 vaccine intravenously into the bloodstream, rather than intramuscularly into the muscle, which is recommended by vaccine manufacturers Pfizer and Moderna. So they recommend you do it intramuscularly, and the way you're supposed to do it intramuscularly is you aspirate it. Like I said, you draw back, and if you don't see blood, you then give it the vaccine. If you do see blood, you throw that syringe out because that means you hit a blood vessel. Scientists indeed observed an association between COVID-19 vaccination and adverse effects like blood clots and heart inflammation. So there is an association between that. But what they say is inaccurate. You tell me what this means. The study referenced by the video didn't show that vaccines were being administered incorrectly. The study examined what could go wrong if mice were injected with an mRNA COVID-19 vaccine intravenously, but the study didn't examine the frequency of incorrect vaccine administration. What? That has nothing to do with the frequency. Who cares about the frequency? We're talking about it being administered incorrectly in a way that leaves it open for the potential of you giving the vaccine intravenously, which then causes heart inflammation. That's what they said. That's what I said. They're making something up here. But the study didn't examine the frequency of incorrect. Who cares? When did I say anything about the frequency? I said so watch this. So we'll keep going. So here's the study that John Campbell and I was referencing. Here's their conclusions. Their conclusion says, if you can't read it, the study provided in vivo evidence that inadvertent intravenous injections of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines may induce myopericarditis, brief withdrawal of the syringe plunger, meaning aspiration, to exclude blood aspiration may be one possible way to reduce this risk. Meaning, if you don't aspirate, you're running the risk of doing this. That's their conclusion, the study. And the Facebook is saying that's not their conclusion. That is their conclusion. Vaccine administration technique has come under increasing scrutiny by scientists. Yeah, because they're not doing it right. Following studies by a research group in Germany, which observed that intravenous administration of COVID-19 vaccine could cause thrombocytopenia, a decrease in platelets in the blood and blood clots. The authors, as well as those for the clinical infectious disease study, hypothesized that if incorrect administration was the cause of these adverse effects, then the risk of such effects could be reduced by simply aspirating during vaccination to ensure that the needle isn't in a blood vessel. This is from them. They're agreeing. This is from their fact check. Then the risk of such, that's exactly what we're saying. Aspiration is performed by pulling back on the needle's plunger to ensure that no blood enters the needle. That's what we're saying. It's important to keep in mind the fact that the exact cause of post-vaccine myocarditis and blood clots in people hasn't been confirmed yet. This is them misleading you. Leo Nicoli, a cardiology fellow at the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich, this is the person who fact-checked my video, explained that while these data might indicate a simple measure to lower the incidence of vaccine-induced side effects, caution is necessary. There is a lack of data on frequency and effects of IV injection in humans. So what this doctor is saying, the data does indicate that aspiration, a simple measure to lower the incidence, aspiration could lower the side effects. That's what he's saying. He's agreeing. But he's saying we got to be super cautious on what we say, okay? And he said because there's not any data on how often this is happening, how frequent. Who cares? Who cares? So there's no data on the frequency of this happening. Okay. Here's what John says about it.
These data might indicate a simple measure to lower the incidence of vaccine-induced side effects.
So he's reading from the fact check, from that doctor who fact-checked my video. He's reading from it.
We agree with Dr. Nicolai 100% here. What we need to do is draw back and we eradicate the possibility of, no matter how small, of inadvertent intravascular administration. So by being fact-checked, I've been massively supported here. So I'm really quite buoyed up by this, as you might gather. Of course.
So the Facebook fact check agrees with what we were saying. Isn't that amazing? Yet somehow they labeled it misleading. He's thrilled that this guy fact checked it because he's agreeing with us. Somehow Facebook says he's not.
Whether I'm right or wrong is irrelevant. What matters is we change practice and stop this side effect from happening. He says there's a lack of...
What's important is we stop administering the vaccines incorrectly and we start aspirating. So we can eliminate the potential of this side effect happening because of incorrect administration of the jab. And guess what? This fact check backs us up. It doesn't say we're wrong.
On the frequency and effects of intravenous injections in humans as a proviso. Now,
so that's, and it goes, well, there's a lack of data on the frequency of the effects. So that's what they're hinging their misleading label of my video on. The frequency. This is what they're hinging it on. The data on the frequency of the effects of, so there is a lack of data on the frequency of this happening. Why do you think there's a lack of data? He's going to explain it to you.
Is of course true. Now, what we could do is we could get say 5,000. Make it 2,000. 2,000 should do. Get 2,000 humans. Give 1,000 the vaccine intramuscularly and make sure it goes intramuscularly by aspirating. And rather than giving it into the muscle in another 1,000 humans, just roll up the sleeve and give it straight into a vein, an intravenous injection. Now, of course, that would never happen. It's completely, utterly unethical. That was a joke. So obviously we can't do this.
So obviously you can't do that. So that's why there's no data, because it's unethical to do that to human beings. But guess what? They did it to mice. And that's where they got their data from. So he's saying, of course, there's a lack of data because you can't do that to human beings.
Obviously, we can't do this. So what is said here, really, there's a lack of data, a frequency of effects of intravenous injections in humans. Obviously, there is, because we can't do it. And we don't even know that in intramuscular injection, when you stick the needle in, how many times it goes into a vein. I estimate once in about 3,000 to 4. One injection in 3,000 to 6,000 is my estimate, but that's not based on firm data.
So he's saying, he's estimating, not based on firm data, he's estimating that's how often it happens. That's not infrequent as far as I'm concerned. And so, because we don't have hard data on how often it happens, they're trying to say we're misleading. Well, you know why there isn't hard data, because you can't perform those kind of tests.
But of course, you stick it in. Now, if that end tip there does happen to be in a vein, of course, you would never know about it, because it just squirts in and you don't see it. So by definition, we don't know this. This is the problem. This is why people are getting it wrong, in my view. So he says most likely two approaches are needed to further vindicate the data. So he's saying that this is correct, but we just need to vindicate it.
He's saying we are correct. Their own fact checkers are supporting what we said. This is crazy. Both scientists contributing to this verdict highlighted that going forward, it would be helpful to study countries that mandate the practice of aspiration and countries that don't mandate this practice. If scientists see fewer cases of myocarditis and blood clots in the former compared to the latter, it would be an observation in favor of this hypothesis. If confirmed, it could lead to widespread change in recommendations about the way COVID-19 vaccines are administered. And we happen to be on the forefront of pointing this out to everybody. Why is it only John Campbell and this show? Because when fact-checked, they agree you should be aspirating the needles. They agree that you should be doing it. Why aren't they? However, certain countries like Denmark now recommend healthcare staff to practice aspiration during COVID-19 vaccination. So are they wrong? No, of course not. They're right. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Here's John again.
Common sense in Denmark, delighted to see. Serum State Institute of Denmark. This has gone in circulars to all nurses and doctors in Denmark, so they all know about this. COVID-19 Janssen vaccine. Now, this is talking about this one particularly, but it does apply to the other vaccines in Denmark as well. They point out on this particular thing, that this particular reference we're using here, they point out that a single dose of 0.5 mils dose undiluted vaccine is given. So it's undiluted. We don't want undiluted vaccine going straight into the blood. Based on a precautionary principle, we recommend aspiration before injection, of course. We agree completely. Now, the authorities in the United States and the United Kingdom are currently not giving this correct advice, in my view.
So he's saying the official advice is incorrect, to not aspirate. And he's trying to get the governments to turn around on this and start giving the correct advice and guidelines. That's how you do an intramuscular injection. You're supposed to aspirate to make sure you didn't hit a vein. That's how you're supposed to do it. That's how they're now doing it in Denmark.
They would be remarkably embarrassed by this, of course. They're not going to stand up and say, oh, we got it wrong all this time. We'll need to start vaccinating.
So do you hear what he's saying? He's telling you how governments work. So the governments are going to lie. They're not going to admit that they got this wrong. He said because it would be extremely embarrassing for them. What are they going to do?
Would say something like, we need to start vaccinating correctly by aspiration. But they could hedge the bets and say something like, I don't know, something like, out of an abundance of caution, we think it's probably a good idea to do this, or something like that. You know the way they talk about these things. Now I'm going to demonstrate this one more time. So here we have our blood vessel. Now here we have our syringe. So you stick that into the muscle, and if you draw back and you're in muscle, then nothing is going to come out because there's no blood going directly through the muscle cells themselves. But if inadvertently the tip of your needle, the tip of the vaccinator's needle, which you can probably just about see there, if that inadvertently goes into a blood vessel, when you draw back, it becomes immediately obvious because you see the blood coming in. Therefore, you're not to give it into a blood vessel. It is that simple, and it is not being done, and it is inexcusable. So that's another paper with even more evidence. How much more do we like? But it just really, I thought that was a really good story, that this was actually discovered through a video about one of my videos being flagged up as misleading, or whatever the term was, but actually massively substantiating what we have been postulating for some time now.
So the fact check massively substantiated what he's been saying for some time now and what my video said. There's one more part. They said they misquote, they make up a straw man. They say I said things I didn't say, and I'm going to show you that, and it's about ivermectin. So here's what they said I said. Oh fuck, I forgot all these jokes. I think these fact checkers are a lot like Oompa Loompas in the sense that they're not real. That's funny. By the way, friendly reminder, Facebook teamed up with Snopes for fact checking for 2 years until 2019. And we've been debunking Snopes here on the regular at this show. And the head of Snopes just was found out to be a serial plagiarizer. That's who Facebook had partnered for 2 years to do fact checking. Anyway. So here's what I said about ivermectin. Listen to this. They're not telling you everything. The mainstream news does not tell you the truth about COVID. They lied to you about ivermectin, said it was not a human medicine when it won the Nobel Prize for Human Medicine in 2015 and is one of the most prescribed drugs in the history of human beings. Billions of prescriptions have been written for ivermectin for human beings, and it's saved many lives. Billions. So they're not telling you that. They're not also telling you that everyone's going to get COVID eventually. They're not telling you that. That's a fact that's accepted by the experts, but they're not telling you that, are they? They keep telling you to be afraid that you might get it. We're all going to get it. So you should prepare for when you get it. And now we find out they're administering the jabs incorrectly. Okay, so did you hear what I said about ivermectin? That the news media lied to you and said it was a horse, that made you think it was a horse medicine instead of a human medicine, and that won the Nobel Prize for human medicine. Now, did you hear me say that ivermectin has been proven to treat COVID? And that because it won the Nobel Prize in medicine in 2015, that means it could treat COVID? I never said that, did I? I didn't say anything like that. I was talking about the lie that the news media told you about ivermectin, which is a fact. They lied and misled people into thinking it was animal medicine instead of what it actually is, a human medicine that was found out to also work in animals. That's what I said. Look at what they said I said. Apart from the claim about vaccine administration, Dore commented on ivermectin's effectiveness against COVID-19. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Alleging that the mainstream news does not tell you the truth about COVID-19, they lied to you about ivermectin, said it was not a human medicine when it won the Nobel Prize for Human Medicine in 2015. That's 100% accurate. 100%. Watch this. While it is true that ivermectin is used in humans and that the scientists who discovered it won a Nobel Prize, what Dore didn't tell his viewers was that neither of those facts have any bearing on whether ivermectin is effective. Again, you know why I didn't bring that up? Because I wasn't saying it was. I was pointing out the obvious lie. And now Facebook is making up a lie saying that I was saying this. I didn't say that. I didn't say that because it won the Nobel Prize. That means it's good at COVID. I didn't say that. They're making it up. Watch this. The fact that scientists won the Nobel Prize for physiology or medicine for their discovery of a particular treatment isn't sufficient grounds for using that treatment for COVID-19. I didn't say that. I said that they won the Nobel Prize for human medicine to debunk the lie that it was an animal medicine. I didn't use that as rationale for treating COVID, like this Facebook is incorrectly and falsely implying. I didn't do that. You saw what I said. They quoted me. I didn't say any of this stuff. Readers may wish to consider that the scientist who developed the lobotomy also won the same Nobel Prize in 1949. This line of reasoning invoked by Dore, I didn't invoke this line of reasoning. They're making it up. This fact check should be censored. It should come with a warning. This fact check is untrue. I didn't say any of this. I didn't use this line of reasoning. Listen to what they say. This line of reasoning invoked by Dore here would imply that the lobotomy could be used to treat COVID-19. Yet no one would reasonably propose that. That's why I didn't say that. I didn't say anything like that. They have to invent a straw man to give me a strike on Facebook. And that's all this is. Why aren't they fact-checking, what's his name? John Campbell? Why aren't they fact-checking John Campbell's? No, they're going to come after Jimmy Dore. Why? Because we're a threat to the establishment. That's the only reason. So they got a mark on me. So they come after me, and it's always incorrect. Just like I showed you about Iowa, they're 100, and they're not going to retract that. You think Facebook is going to apologize? You think Lead Stories and the weirdos who work there are going to apologize to me for that? No. Do you think Facebook is going to apologize for this? Because I didn't say any of this. No. And there's nobody to appeal this to. There's nobody I can talk to. They just make it up, and then I get a mark on my social credit score. And so now I've got 2 misinformation things on me from Facebook, both of them bogus. But they're going to use this when they deplatform me. That's what this is. That's all this is. When the time comes, they're going to go, oh, well, he's been flagged for misinformation twice by independent fact checkers, and they'll probably have it 3 or 4 times. And they're wrong every time. Didn't say any of this. This is completely made up. You saw what I said about COVID-19. So there you go. Let's remember what Facebook was invented for. Facebook was invented to rate the hotness of girls in college. That's what Mark Zuckerberg's big idea was. So we can rate the hotness of women at a college campus. That's what Facebook was invented for. And now Facebook is going to be fact-checking misleadingness about science? Sounds totally legit. Sounds totally legit. So now you know why I have a popular show. Now you know why I have to go to Rumble, which I will be doing. Because journalists and Democrats embrace censorship and cheer it on. They all do. They're not against it. They want this to happen. Places like The Intercept, places like MSNBC, CNN, they want this to happen. The Young Turks, they begged for this. And here it is. And they never have to worry because they are the establishment. And even if they lie, they'll never be called on it because they're going to be lying at the behest of the establishment. which never gets fact-checked, which is why Dr. Sanjay Gupta and CNN could say ivermectin is horse paste and never get a warning on any of their tweets or videos or anything. They can lie over and over again. Mark Zuckerberg read 1984 in Brave New World in college and thought they were instruction manuals. So there you go. There's another failed fact check by Facebook. We're doing stand-up comedy in Florida, in West Palm Beach and Dania, and then we're going to Buffalo, Baltimore, Tempe, and Portland. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all our tickets.